industry's perspective on some hot topic issues that they're having to deal with. So like Jason so aptly said, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know that's happening on the state DOT side unless we have these conversations or hear people talk about it. So this will be interesting for us.
Okie dokie. So someone said, hey, if you don't bring the passion, they're not going to listen. So here's the afternoon passion. I was asked to come up with a presentation on industry hot topics. And I kind of maybe blew my powder a little early about the freight rate change out of Florida significantly, but we're seeing that across the board. There's not enough trucks, enough driver hours to handle the material. So start out, my name is Scott Metcalf, and this is Jeff Weitzel. We're both your industry co-chairs on Rocky Mountain West Pavement Preservation Partnership. So we'll be having a little meeting later on, but Jeff and I have been kind of asked to go through this hot topic. So Jeff, feel free to jump in on any comments, but...
So it's good to be back and seeing everybody out and about who've suffered enough with this COVID, so getting everybody back together is pretty awesome, and so thank you for that, and you know, I appreciate everybody showing up. I'm here really as Scott's supporter, so we'll get into it, and then I'll introduce who I am with my company later on.
You're my emotional support person?
Emotional support.
Awesome. Okay. Let's go hot topics. So I live in Los Angeles. My son goes to Long Beach State, and I get a report every day. As he was on the rowing crew, and he would row, they would row around the ships and try it out. And at one time, he counted 76 ships that were in port. Now, 76 ships, cargo ships, that were sitting in port for over a month and a half. Now, a crew could not depart those ships until it was actually physically docked. So they're out in harbor waiting a month and a half. Can you imagine being on a cruise, on a ship? It only took you 2 weeks to come from China, or it took you 2 weeks to come from India, and you get there, and now you get to sit there and wait? So miraculously, the harbor said, oh, we're going to fix this, and the federal government said, we're going to fix this. We're going to change the definition of in port, and we're going to change it. So it used to be 20 miles within the radius of Long Beach, that if you were docked or anchored off, you were in port. So they changed it and said, well, we're going to make this 20 miles, but we're going to have everyone park their boats 75 miles. And so literally, you could drive from Los Angeles to San Diego and look offshore, and all you saw was cargo containers everywhere. So with that, the cargo containers are coming over. We don't have enough space in the port of Long Beach or the port of Los Angeles or the port of Seattle or the port of Portland to offload all the containers that we're demanding be offloaded. We don't have enough trucks to take the goods and services off the truck to get them out of the port so we can offload the ships faster. So the ships just stay there and the poor crews are out there. So when it comes time to getting that crew to go home, man, they're defecting right and left. Well, the boat can't leave the dock until they got a crew. You know, so now we had to build a hotel in Long Beach and have 24-hour security guards trying to keep the crews wrangled in on this side of the fence and not have them escape so they could just say, hey, I'm done. I need to get my free COVID shot and I need to disappear into the American quilt. So the ships now can't leave the port because they don't have a crew, and that's just blogging up more and more. So the supply chains were real. The effort was real. You can read all about it in Marine Magazine. It's an incredible little jaunt and glimpse into marine. We had marine fuels that went away from used to use diesel and asphalt and 6-oil. They had to go to clean burning fuels, clean diesels. So now we have a biodiesel. Change the port dynamics of that. Inbound freight, outbound freight. It was just a cluster. And all people just could say, how do you fix this? Throw more money at it, and more money just causes more inflation. Logistics and labor. Obviously, we're starting to see our labor pool. We used to have those guys that would labor in our warehouses, in our factories. And now when I interview people, hey, would you like to come work at the emulsion plant? And this is kind of what it is. And because it has forklift driving in the description, and you're going to be loading stuff. And inevitably, here comes a kid from Amazon. And he's like, oh, really? I have to get under a rail car and offload the rail car? Yeah, see, if I work at Amazon, I get my 15-minute break, and then I get my hour break, and then I get parking, and I get lunch, and I get a catered lunch, and I get breakfast supplied to me, and a robot tells me if I'm doing, and I do have a boss yelling at me, doing it faster, do it faster, do it faster, do it faster. But it's a very pleasant work environment, relatively speaking, when it's 105 out in the Amazon warehouse is fully air conditioned. So how do we convince that kid that was possibly going to be the Amazon, going to go out and chip seal with us, come with me, let's go out here, it's going to be great, we're going to be in the middle of nowhere, and we're going to have trucks, and we're going to have water trucks, and we're going to drive trucks, and we're going to put chips on rocks, and we're going to see bears and wildlife, and maybe we can find those kids, but those kids don't exist in Los Angeles real everywhere. So we have that labor pool, labor talent, big problem. And every kid we told for the last 20 years, you need to go to college, you need to go to college. But when they get out, they have no degree. And then we got to introduce them to welding, we got to introduce them to manual labor. Half those kids haven't gardened, they don't know how to pull a weed, they don't know how to operate a weed whacker, they know how to use the cell phone. So that's one of the real things is 6 years ago, I went to Con Expo. How many, raise your hand if you guys have been to Con Expo. Let's bring some more energy. Con Expo, raise your hand. If you haven't been, you got to go. Because you go to the Volvo booth, and if you guess who watches gold mining, the gold mining show of the Yukon gold miners. It's exciting. You notice they always have Volvo equipment. Go, they're all sponsored by them. So don't feel bad for Parker Schnabel. He's doing just fine. But Parker is there signing autographs, but they go in this booth, and they said, Scott, here's a loader. We want you to operate this loader. And so I'm operating this loader, and I'm in this kind of virtual machine, and I'm doing the gears, and I got the hydraulics over here. And he goes, okay, I want you to go right. I want you to go left. Now try digging a hole and try digging this rock out, and then go lift it over into the virtual dump truck. So I'm doing this, and I'm not real good at my hydraulics. You can see there, and boom, I hit the truck. He's, oh, hey, be careful. Now I'm playing a virtual reality simulator. The reality was I was driving that same loader, loading a dump truck in Pennsylvania from Las Vegas, live. That is the capability that is out there. The world of construction is going to change. I can certainly see the day where you might have a truck driver where it's coming into a construction zone and it says, boom, hey, I need a real driver to navigate this. Turn on to a real driver. That real driver might be sitting in Las Vegas. Oh, great, I picked up. Okay, I'm gonna drive my truck through this construction zone in Montana or Wyoming. Futurism, I can see it. Volvo believes that's the future and they're working towards it. So things are gonna change. Economic trends, inflation, it's here. If you just look at that number there, 9.1% since November, it's just going up. And it's not going to stop because we're giving the pay raises. And that's real cost pressure. So in this presentation of Hot Topics, went out and said, okay, what are the things that are out there? What industries affect us? Transportation, trucking industry is a huge driver. It drives every single one of us. After 9/11, who got the goods and services? It was trucks. Who delivered our goods and services to us when in the pandemic? It was truck drivers. Who were emergency related people? Truck drivers. It gets there by a truck, 100%. Trucking coalition is very, very strong. But here were their top things that they came up with that affected them. Autonomous vehicles was number one. They want to understand, they love their truck drivers and they love their union members and they love their constituents, but what's autonomous vehicles looking like? I kind of gave you a glimpse into what Volvo thinks the autonomous industry might look like. In Chandler, Arizona, we're already ordering you pizzas. You can order a Domino's pizza, and it shows up in a little Domino's vehicle, and there's no driver in there. Just boom, push it, off you go. You order a Whammo Uber, and it says, would you like a driverless Uber? And here comes this driverless Uber. Unfortunately, there is a driver in there. He just sits there because they have, by law, have someone in there. But here's an autonomous Whammo, and it drives you Uber and takes you to the store. And it's kind of fun if you go paint a line around it, it gets locked up. It doesn't know where to go. It's like, oh, I can't get out. But bottlenecks, congestion is a huge problem. Infrastructure funding, they're just as concerned with the funding as we are. Because gas tax and diesel tax affects them, increases their price, but they do want good roads. They know good, safe roads are better for transportation and easier on their trucks. Compliance and safety, accountability. Everybody on these trucks now all have cameras. And they're just trying to do that for the insurance and liability, that the truck driver's like, hey, I didn't, this guy cut in front of me. I had a safe distance, and all of a sudden this car moved in front of me. And that's why we have a rear-end accident, because their insurance is a huge issue. Driver health and safety and wellness. Our population's aging, and those drivers, okay, that's a big concern. You have a heart attack, you have a stroke, you have some issues there. We need healthy, safe drivers. Driver shortages, driver retention. Who's paying the bonuses? I had to laugh. We were talking to one DOT, and they're like, well, industry, you're stealing all my drivers. And I'm like, I can't steal your drivers because you can employ a driver at 18. I can't touch the driver till he's 25 and has 5 years experience and has a hazmat license. But you, interstate trucking, can hire them at 18 and get them out of high school and get them a good paying job. Just a challenge to you as a state. Interstate, well, no, that's a whole nother deal. Hours of service, obviously, the new logs cut down drivers significantly. Used to have an uncle that was a long-haul driver. He used to drive from Florida to California, California to Wisconsin, back to Florida, and he'd do that in about a 5-day period. Now, if you took driver's logs and was electronic logs, that was a 7-day period. So, it's significant downtime in drivers. We couldn't utilize the same equipment. Operational costs, truck safety, technology, traffic incidents management, truck parking. Huge problem in the urban environments. Where do you park these trucks? Where does this trucker spend the night? Do you have that zone? Do you have that capability? Or is he having to hold outside of a major city by 2.5 hours, 3 hours, as we see in Bakersfield, California, trying to drive into Los Angeles because there's just no truck parking in LA. Construction industry, hot topics. Labor supply, labor shortages. Tim addressed that. You just can't get I bid the work, thought I was going to be able to get these guys. Historically, I've been always being able to get these guys, but I can't find any laborers. I just can't find anyone that wants to work. Now, I bid that job in October. We're not a slave state. We never have been. But what kind of guarantee or what kind of exit strategy or assistance can you offer that contractor? They bid it in good faith. Maybe it's that shorter windows. I'm not quite sure how long those windows are or what you can do, but those are huge issues. Skilled labor shortages across the board. We see it on your side, we see it on our side. Currently, they estimate 300,000 job openings in construction right now. Law, protecting your business against cost overruns and litigation. Another huge issue. People are just begging to, how can I partner with you, Ergon, or how can I partner with you, Exxon, to make sure that I have these supplies so when I can't perform or I need to come back and say, sorry, we can't do that they're not in litigation. Accounting rules. We're seeing leasing and accounting rules totally change. So that's a huge issue. Another hot topic, construction, I don't have there, was DBEs, disadvantaged businesses. what opportunities that the federal government says, hey, you need to have so much disadvantaged business, and Caltrans says, in addition to that, you need so much disadvantaged business. And now I want a minority disadvantaged participation of some, blue-bellied lizard people that need to make up 30% of this contract. Well, it's a chip seal. It's emulsion, rock, and labor. So now all of a sudden they come to the emulsion manufacturer and say, well, I would like you to sell to this disadvantaged lizard group of blue-bellied lizard people because they meet the criteria, and give them credit for $3.5 million. Well, no. I mean, where's their capability of buying first place? And then at the same time, does that relieve me of my liability of a supply? So that's going back to that contractual side, because all of a sudden now they're the supplier to the contractor, and now I as a supplier am out of my lien and bond rights for payment because I supplied the disadvantaged minority business. That probably the intent of the law was to try and take a disadvantaged opportunity and get people employment and give them that opportunity, but not to put them as a middleman and paper pusher of projects. Price quote duration. Some quotes, I got quotes on my cabinets, and the guy said, here's the deal one. I'll give it to you for today. There's your price. It's good for today. Tell me if you want it or not. Tomorrow's going to change. We've had to lock in on some of our quotes and say, hey, 2 weeks. If you're a parent low bidder, I need to know so we can lock in. Because if not, it's not a negotiation after the fact. We won't be there. Price is not good. So understanding duration of price quotes is a critical thing for the contractors, which trickles back down to agencies. If I can't get a steel or a Portland cement concrete price, and that's when I redid my pool this summer, the pool contractor said, hey, I need this. And he goes, I'm going to give you an estimate, Scott. It's anywhere between $20,000 and $40,000 because I don't know what the price of cement or basically the plaster is going to be. Because prices of plaster, I can't get a price. So you're going to pay the price of plaster the day of plaster. Are you good with that? I think I'll live with the rust stain for the summer. It'll be okay. Yeah, we'll live with that. Hot topics for engineers. This is affecting you guys. Here's your list of what came out for engineers. We're in the fourth revolution. Industrial revolution is what they say. Anyone heard that before? Raise your hand if you've heard that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Okay. Obviously, we're all civil engineers. No one here. No, not one, right? But if you go to universities and you go to Davis and you go to Chico State and you look at the robotics program, you go to the University of Alabama, there are people in robots everywhere. It is the industrial revolution of robotics and autonomous and other opportunities. So we have to change our mindset of how we design bridges, how we do things, because there's going to be a lot more interactive autonomous vehicles in design programs. They already 3D print houses, right? You can set up a 3D printer on a house, start feeding it concrete, and it prints a house. Wow, that's significant. That's game-changing, alternating house building construction. So these are the things that are affecting you. Level of autonomous. We're kind of partially autonomous right now, conditional autonomous. We're going to go full function autonomous. Most of the autonomous robotics are coming out of Japan, not China. That's the number one import into China is robotic technology from Japan. Clean energy. Find solutions that boast human and health. So my son's at Long Beach, and he's an economics major. He was working in the asphalt lab and decided he'd change that and go over to the robotics lab because they're working on autonomous flying vehicles for Long Beach. That they think that they can reduce the amount of parking, have more people living there, and have basically the Jetsons. That's what they want to try doing in the city of Long Beach is try to get to autonomous vehicles. And you know what? They think they can get it done in 4 years. The rate of growth in the industrial revolution that we're going through is incredible. This is just a refining capacity deal. It's talking about asphalt supply and why Buy America is a critical component to us in the construction industry is because our refining capacity in America is dropping every single day. In California, 6 years ago, we had 7 refineries making asphalt. We now have 3. We didn't stop our use of asphalt. Our demand for asphalt's only increased. So we're bringing more in from Canada, we're bringing more in from Mexico, we're bringing more in from Brazil, we're bringing more in from Latin America. We're bringing some from Saudi Arabia. So our demand curves and our supply chains significantly change when refineries in Cheyenne, Wyoming shut down to make biodiesel because it's cheaper or better, more profitable for them to make biodiesel and ship it to California than it is to make asphalt and liquid asphalt. You know, those are real decisions they have to make. Here's the supply for asphalt Western US. So I put in pad 5 and I also put in pad 4. These are the oil inventory road stocks of road oil. As you can see, they're decreasing. The inventory, now this is inventory, this is what's in tanks out there, is decreasing. Meaning that they're more flatline just in time. And we saw what just in time has done to our supply chain. It's been a little stressful, more than just a little stressful. You can determine in the asphalt industry if the person's a stress eater. You might be eating, what was that? I need to eat some more. I've only put on like 40 pounds since the COVID because of stress eating. So here's your supply inventories. Here's coker inventories. Here's the alternative for coke, right? The alternative for asphalt is to heat it up, extract out some more diesel, some more gasoline, and turn it into coal, a coal type product called coke, pet coke, and then ship that overseas to China so they can burn it in their coal facilities, coal power and burn power. So as you see, the demand for coke, it was pretty high. These are inventories now. So back in the 80s and in the 2000s, we had a lot of inventory. You had it stockpiled in Vancouver. We had it stockpiled in Long Beach. We had coke, all over the place. We had coke in Utah, Montana. It was everywhere. Those coke inventories are just depleting because there's a supply chain for it. Struggles, you know what? The reawakening of COVID. And I sat there and said, wow, the reawakening of COVID, how do we get people employed? All these, where'd they all go? Well, apparently there's some long haul COVID. And I was listening to a little interesting thing on NPR, and they were talking about long haul COVID, that there's some people that got COVID, and you know what? They just can't function. They are just locked up, can't go out, just have no energy, can't bring the energy, can't hold the job. And so I wonder how much that we see and is going to be a change in our environment. Labor negotiations. This is why inflation is here to stay. If we look at this and say that you have healthcare workers, municipality workers, state and county workers are all renegotiating. Who heard about the railroad shortage? We're going to have this looming railroad crisis. We gave them, 24% pay increase over 5 years. Man, where do I sign up for that? But we'll stop the presses. It may still happen after the election that they're not in full agreement. They're just agreement on the pay raise. It's not final negotiation yet. Wow. Kroger's, School Bus First, Kaiser Permanente, UPS, longshoremen. The longshoremen, they can cripple you in a heartbeat. And those guys driving those cranes, $300,000 a year for operating a crane that can go autonomous, but they have great power over the economy. 17 cement plants. That's not a Portland cement concrete plant taking cement. That is the Mitsubishis of the world, the big, huge producers of Portland cement, powder, all in renegotiations. And then the wonderful governor of California signing in a bill that says if you have 100 franchises, and we don't care if they're out, as long as you're in California and you have a franchise in California, if you have more than 100, you need to apply the labor rates of California, the minimum wage rates of California, to all franchises across the board. So I guarantee you, get used to the McDonald's having fewer and fewer cashiers, and they will figure out that autonomous stuff. Because I was in Las Vegas, walked up, said, God, I'm kind of hungry, want breakfast, pushed the button, my breakfast popped out on a thing, walked over, and I didn't talk to anybody. I just pushed buttons, walked away. And they're like, hey, we're not even gonna worry about security because you're inside, we're gonna figure you're a payable person. But autonomous waitress, we're gonna get to this point, and it's happening quickly. That's kind of what I have. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, just to, good job, Scott. But just to springboard off of what Scott said, and how do we get our workforce back and the economy running again? So this little article here I'm going to read is something that I always watch the Squawk Box in the morning, and everybody's kind of watching their 401k, stock market. Of course, I do anyway. And this is they had a conversation of what the heck is the Federal Reserve doing? And one gentleman jumped on there and they said, this is why they're doing this. It says, as the Federal Reserve continues to fight inflation by raising interest rates, this will put pressures on equities, driving 401k values down, driving down home prices. This effort will push more people back to work, reducing current workforce challenges, which in turn, by having a stronger workforce, will increase supply, reduce supply chain disruptions. In the short term, we will still be feeling the pain throughout 2023. So these were the comments on the Squawk Box that they were talking about. Now, this is, I wanted to read this and give you, it's more thought-provoking. You may agree with it or you may not agree with it. Whether this is exactly the reason why the Federal Reserve is lowering the interest rate or not, I'm not sure. But that's where the comments were from CNBC. The other thing, I just wanted to jump on kind of what Tim said, and I think that FP2 is right on cue. The things that are very important is the fact that we need to have this Buy America exemptions. As what Scott was alluding to earlier, not everything, reduction in refinery capacities, a lot of crude oil coming out of Canada and Mexico. I'm in the surfactant world, right? So not all of the components within certain chemistries are made here in the U.S. A lot are. Some components come from all over the world. So all of this stuff affected the supply chain. Issues with, the ports being blocked up and, labor forces out there striking against going back to work, and COVID slowed the supply chain down. The other things that were the hot topics that we've been working with, I'm in Colorado, and this is EPDs. It was kind of, derived from Colorado. They passed it through legislation. The governors signed it into law. So now, from July 1st this year on, you have to be able to produce your EPD number to the state through the NAPA Emerald Eco Label program, right? So it's cradle to gate. So basically, what does it cost? How much energy does it take to crush your aggregate for you to produce that mix? And then once it gets out the gate, but it's not cradle to grave yet. But right now in Colorado, they're just collecting the data. They're not saying, okay, here's your number. Is your number a 70? Your EPD number is 70? It doesn't matter. They're just trying to find out where it's at. By 2025, it will be a specification that you have to hit this number here on your EPD. If you're not, you're kicked out and you can't bid on that project with the process that you're doing. You have to find ways to lower that EPD number. And there are ways to do that. So I think it's good that maybe you kind of sandbag a little bit and you, put your worst number out there, your worst mix. What can you do to produce a mix that's going to drive up your energy costs as much as possible? Report those numbers first. Then as you drive them down, maybe that's what they're thinking, and it might be the right way. I don't know. But EPDs is a hot topics. LCAs, another one. But all of those things are coming. I don't know about these other states. If you guys are looking at doing EPDs through Napa or not, but it's definitely a driving force in Colorado. I think perhaps there's like California's looking at it, of course, and I believe Pennsylvania. There might be one other state that I'm aware of that's on board right now, but Colorado is definitely driving it. The gentleman's name that's writing the specification is Bill Schiebels. He was a state materials engineer for CDOT. He's since retired and now is working for Roxol, and they have acquired him and his expertise to help write the specification. So I think whatever that's going to look like, it could end up being a template for other states. But that's really all I had on hot topics. Those are the things that keep me up at night. Buy America. I think we have to have exemptions, absolutely. Otherwise, you think we got supply chain issues now, it's going to be worse. I think we have to get our materials. Plus, how do you innovate if you can't draw materials from around the world? I mean, I don't see how you can do that. Anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, Scott.
Thanks, Jeff. Any questions?
Weeks ago, we had the Midwest Pavement Preservation Partnership, and when that group was asked what are EPDs going to do to your agency, I would think the large majority of the agencies had no idea what was coming down the pike in the Midwest. So I hope we have a better response here, but I'm scared to ask.
So raise your hand if you know what an EPD is. Okay. So environmental product declaration. But before you make an environmental product declaration, and how it gets explained to me for the last 2.5 years, it's going to look something like the back of your Kellogg's Wheaties thing, that you're going to be able to look at your Kellogg's sugar-free Wheaties and say, wow, compared to the Frosted Flakes, as a diabetic, I probably should be eating Wheaties. I probably shouldn't be eating the Frosted Flakes because it's going to give me, and we'll make an assumption that sugar is bad. Sugar is not good for the environment, as sugar's not good for a diabetic such as myself. So that hopefully some agency's going to be able to read this and say, oh, you know what? We probably, if all things are equal, and I need to just eat, and I need Wheaties, or I need food, that I probably should be picking this over this as an environmental issue. But with all that being said, you have to have product category rules. And so industry right now is in the product category rule defining product categories. And so your category is, how are you going to judge yourself, and what rules are you going to have for this product category? Well, man, that's That's an arbitrary viewpoint. Who's judging who? And who gets to write the categories? Is this a guy that's in his Birkenstocks up in Oregon behind a tree, just graduated, he's been sitting there thinking about this, and he's with the white owl, and he has his, condor on his shoulder? He's going to have a different perspective versus someone from Bumpus Brothers, Portland Cement Concrete Producing Group. So we're trying to figure out what those category rules are. You get the category rule, then you do your calculations, and then you are able to come up with your product declaration. And then there's another third component, life cycle cost analysis. This is where you have to come back and say, how long will this last? I spent this carbon. Did I get a value out of it? Because you have to have, what's the life cycle cost analysis of that carbon footprint? Because we know it has a carbon footprint. How long does it last? So I think asphalt and perpetual pavements look really good. That we're going to see a lot more perpetual pavements if you take a long-term life cycle cost. And there's a big fight in between concrete and asphalt, and we won't get into that, about life cycle cost or interest rates and other things going on. But that's a battle for industry, not for DOTs. I'm a firm believer that Portland Cement Concrete as an asphalt guy, I'll say it, has the absolute right place and the right time on the right road for the right places. And so does asphalt. So we can all live together. With that being said, we're on time.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.